good morning, afternoon, evening, maybe even good night, depending on in which time zone you are. Welcome to this IEA OES webinar, Ocean Energy Outlook in the United States and Canada. Very happy to see you all in this webinar. My name is Matthijs. I'm the chairman of the Technology Collaboration Platform from the IEA, where we work together with representatives of different countries, member countries, to see the advancements in ocean energy technologies, stimulate research and development, but also the commercialization of the ocean energy technologies. We are coming regularly together, but we're also happy to share the developments of ocean energy with the wider public and even trying to engage them. We have the focus not just on one or two single technologies, or the most common one, wave and tidal, but also tidal and ocean currents and ocean thermal energy gradient, but also salinity gradient. As you can see in the slide, our members, but I would really like to advise you to visit our website to get more information about us, and also that you see we are having from different interests, governmental utilities, but agencies, but also industry associations. So we really welcome to be connected with you. Today, we have, can I have the next slide, maybe, Anna? An ocean energy outlook on the United States and Canada. The scope is to share with you the latest advancements, projects, and key policies in these countries, and introducing as well, it's the second point, a new tool showcasing global ocean energy projects. In this slide, you see the annual report. I'm always very proud on this delivery of our annual report. It's a rich source of information, prepared mainly as well, coordinated by Anna Brito Emelo and Filipa from WAVEC, who are putting a lot of energy in it, but it's really a very good source of information on the latest developments of ocean energy. I would like to already say thanks already to Filipa and Anna now for setting up this webinar. Thank you so much for all the work. I would like to welcome our speakers today, Elisa Obermann, Tim Ramsey, and Katie Peterson from NREL, who are going to deliver some very nice contributions as far as I know. Let's start first with Elisa Obermann, Executive Director at Marine Renewables Canada. In her role, she facilitates technology innovation in the sector by advocating policies, identifying international business development opportunities, and really also enhancing the capacity of the local supply chain. And she's also a member, of course, of the alternate delegate for Canada in the Technology Collaboration Platform. Elisa, I would like to give you the floor, and really very keen to hear what are the things going on in Canada.
Great, thank you very much for that introduction. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Thanks OES for having me. So my intention today is just to provide a pretty high-level update of the activity in marine renewable energy in Canada, and mainly around project developments, and then also, some updates on policy as well. So for those of you that aren't that familiar with us, Marine Renewables Canada is a national industry association that focuses on offshore wind, tidal, wave, and river current energy. We are headquartered in Halifax, Nova Scotia, so on the east coast of Canada, but we do have offices in Montreal and British Columbia as well. And our membership has been growing quite a bit, which I think is a good sign in terms of, just growth of the sector. So in addition to, the focus on wave, tidal, and river, we are also seeing more with offshore wind and green hydrogen members as well. And so our mandate and our mission is really to advance the sector in Canada. And so to do that, there's a number of key things we do. So advocacy, we have a lot of focus on supply chain development, education and engagement, and then we do quite a bit with international business development. So things like trade missions, market studies, that type of thing. So just to give you an idea, this is just a very high level snapshot of things happening, or mainly project and demonstrations across the country. Not all of these are deployed. Some of these are, in the planning phases. And you'll also notice here today is that there's also on both the east and west coast of Canada, there's offshore wind activity, or at least proposed activity. I'm not going to be talking about offshore wind today, and so I just wanted to signal that as well, because the OES mandate is focused on wave, tidal, and river, and so my presentation today will be focused on those activities. But as you can see, on the East Coast, quite a bit happening around tidal energy, and then when we move to more central within Canada, Manitoba has activity happening in river current energy. And then West Coast would be, focused on tidal and wave mostly. And so what I'm going to do is dig in a little bit more on not all of these, but a little bit more on some of them that are, I would say, some highlights. Before getting into project activity, I thought I would start with some policy and regulatory updates, just to give everyone an idea of what's been happening in Canada with regards to the sector. So first, starting with the Tidal Energy Task Force, there's a bit of media in terms of the establishment of this initiative, but essentially it stems from regulatory challenges that have been of concern to tidal energy developers and the industry. And so industry has been calling on government to help address those regulatory challenges that are under the Fisheries Act. And in June 2023, a jointly led task force by Fisheries and Oceans Canada, or DFO, and Natural Resources Canada was established. And so the purpose of that task force is to clarify requirements for fish protection and also to help reduce turnaround time for regulatory decisions for tidal energy projects. There's quite a bit more to it than that, but just in short, we're happy to see that established, and we think that it will help with progress in the tidal energy sector, not just around the Bay of Fundy, but also support activity across the country going forward. Another key policy and regulatory update is the offshore renewable energy regulations. So these are under the Canadian Energy Regulator Act. They're currently being developed and will focus on safety and environmental protection. So this is looking at kind of the life cycle of a project from exploration, construction, operation, and decommissioning. One thing I really wanted to point out is those regulations pertain to Canada's offshore areas. So when you think about how that would be applied, that would mainly be probably offshore wind, wave, and then there will also I'm doubtful that it would cover tidal, but in theory, these could. And then the consultation on these are ongoing. The targeted date for entry into force is 2024. Another key initiative underway in Canada is the Blue Economy Strategy and Regulatory Review. And so I think this came about because it's been acknowledged that we have some of the longest coastlines in the world, but not a real cohesive strategy on the sustainable development of those resources, and also looking at the regulatory environment for these, and how to ensure responsible development moving forward of all ocean sectors. And so this work began in February 2021. I may have presented on this in the past, but what I wanted to do is provide a bit of an update of where we are. One thing that came out of the consultation around the strategy was that there were a lot of kind of questions raised around the regulatory framework, and people raising the fact that there's some barriers in how they can move feasibly forward with some of these projects, not just marine renewables, but in other ocean sectors as well. And so the federal government launched a Blue Economy Regulatory Review at the end of last year, and that will be looking more at those, the overall regulatory framework that different ocean sectors have to go through. And so, our hope is that we'll see the results from that, or the outcomes, within the next several months to a year. Finally, just one other update on the government support side. The last federal budget, so this came out in March, had some new mechanisms that would support the marine renewable energy sector. And so this is just a highlight of two of them. One is the establishment of an investment tax credit, and wave and tidal and river, I should also have on there, are all eligible for this investment tax credit. So obviously that helps, with the investment climate for the sector in Canada. It also includes a 30% refundable tax credit for new machinery and equipment, including renewable energy equipment. And then quite a large fund has been established called the Canada Growth Fund, so $15 billion looking at clean technology investments. But I would say this one is much more centered around, very large investments such as electricity infrastructure, offshore transmission, and whatnot. So that while it might not support an individual marine renewable project, it could be very helpful, just for building that broader infrastructure and transmission that's going to be needed in the future. So now going into some project highlights, and again, as I mentioned, I'm not covering all of them that were in that first map, but just some highlights on some of the more active projects across Canada, starting on the East Coast in Nova Scotia. And so there we have a number of developers active. What's not showing here are New Energy East and Jupiter Hydro that also have been awarded licenses by the provincial government. But starting with Nova Innovation, they have a 4 megawatt project that is in Petite Passage. They have completed fabrication of their first device and are looking for a window of time when deployment is appropriate. And so they've made quite a bit of progress with that project. BP Energy is also continuing with their project at Force. It's a 9 megawatt project, again, fully has licenses and a feed-in tariff approval from the provincial government. They've completed their site characterization, and obviously the next step would be fabrication of devices and deployment. And then Big Moon Power at Force, again, has a 9 megawatt project, has received approvals from the provincial government. They've completed fabrication of their first device, and they have a 2023 deployment slated. And my understanding is that activity working towards deployment has commenced. So moving on from tidal, one of the, I think, more exciting activities that happened, and this is in fall 2022, I believe, was the deployment of ORPC's River Current Energy or Hydrokinetic device in Manitoba at the Canadian Hydrokinetic Turbine Test Center. And the real focus of that project is to demonstrate capabilities for off-grid and Indigenous remote communities. And we view this as something that would be very helpful in building momentum towards seeing more river hydrokinetic projects in Canada. Particularly when we look at northern environments, this is a really key piece, is understanding, interactions with ice and how weather conditions may impact the project. So very pleased to see that happen in the last year as well. And then now moving to the West Coast, most of the focus there has been around, in British Columbia, has been around displacing diesel use in remote communities. And so the small scale projects are more of the focus amongst our members and industry. But the other piece, because there are so many remote communities that are Indigenous communities, there's been partnerships between Indigenous communities and industry, but also with local academic institutions. So, for example, the Mwachilat-Mushalat First Nation has partnered with a number of entities, including University of Victoria, to look at the feasibility of a wave energy project. And then in spring of this year, the provincial government in British Columbia announced an award of $2 million for the Blind Channel Demonstration Center. And so the focus of that is tidal energy, small scale, and looking at how to build capacity and understanding of tidal energy technologies in First Nations communities. So that concludes just my kind of high-level updates, and I am happy to take any questions at this time. I'm going to stop sharing just so I can look through here.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Very clear, but there are still some questions, which is nice as well. There's clearly an interest. And first, I would like to ask you, or one of the attendees, what happened to the Shuttle Sustainable Marine and Andritz hydro-tidal projects? People are not well informed.
Yeah, starting with the latter, the Andritz hydro-tidal project that I think is being referred to here is actually DP Energy's Heligonia tidal energy project that I mentioned that's at Force. So it's a 9 megawatt project. It's still underway. They're not at a point of deployment yet, so that one is still in progress. With regards to sustainable marine, there's quite a bit about this in the media over the spring and summer. And essentially, I guess, the bottom line here is that they ran into a number of regulatory hurdles working to receive a fisheries authorization under the Fisheries Act in Canada. And it came to a point where after many years of trying to go through that process, obviously investment, doesn't always line up with regulatory processes. And they had to make the decision to end their project at force, unfortunately.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And what are in fact the key challenges to overcome in Canada to get more projects into the water?
So I would say two things primarily. I mean, there's lots of, as we know, for those of us working in the marine renewable sector or renewable energy sector in general, I think there's lots of challenges. I'd say right now, there's kind of two main things that we're facing. So one being regulatory challenges. And, that is something that's not just faced by marine renewables, but also by clean energy across Canada. And primarily, looking at what the investment cycle of a marine project is, or renewable energy in general, doesn't always line up with the regulatory timelines. And also because some of these are new technologies, legislation that was developed years ago didn't really envision having to regulate these types of technologies. So that's where projects, I think, run into trouble. The government of Canada has committed to looking at how to address this, how to make those processes more efficient. But that will take time, I think. And I think the second is also just around investment, right? Building confidence and ensuring that it's a, attractive investment climate for projects. But a lot of that also will have to do with the regulatory path, and also signals that are provided to the investment community from government.
Yeah, on the regulatory path, I see a question as well. What type of environmental monitoring requirements are typically for marine tidal developments?
Yeah, that's a long question. I don't know if I could answer that one all together at this time, because I think it can be complex. It really depends on the location of project. It depends on the technology being used, whether it's floating or seabed mounted. And also, the level of risk. And so depending on whether there are species at risk in the area, the environmental monitoring would have to be able to provide more certainty to regulators. So that's a very high level answer. But for those asking, those kind of more specific questions, I'm very happy to answer them, after this, and provide some follow-up information.
Okay, great. I'm very happy with that, because the number of questions is growing, which I'm happy about. Means as well that it's very interesting. One of the questions is well on wind energy. I think that is, besides that, you touched it slightly. So maybe that can be answered later on as well. The place of marine renewable energies in the Canadian ocean economy. Is it a big share? How much are you looking forward to this ocean energy developments? How important is it for Canada?
I think it's very important. I mean, there hasn't been a lot of work done on kind of that economic analysis. But what I will mention is that there is an entity called the Ocean Supercluster that recently launched their Ambition 2035, which is a vision for the ocean economy and ocean sector in Canada, with ocean energy being actually, one of the very high priority areas where they see the potential for a lot of growth. And so given, the need for energy transition, I can only see the role of marine renewables increasing in Canada over time. And so with the ocean sector as a whole, I think there's a lot of, untapped potential in the ocean sector as a whole. But as we know with marine renewables, there definitely is, a lot there that could be worked on in the future.
Yeah. For now, just one other question. There are still too many in the chat. Maybe you can have a look by yourself as well. But one of them is, thank you for the informative talk from Jean Fro de Lacroix. What is the balance between Canadian and foreign investments and firm identities in MRE? Is there already export of MRE expertise from Canada? I think that's interesting because we are an international platform. How are you dealing with that?
Right. So I'm taking it, this is kind of the question is asking around the technologies, whether like the actual tidal turbine or device technology, is that kind of in terms of
partially, yeah, because you're taking Nova, DP, which is very European. What is the balance between Canadian and foreign investments? And how do you look into that? But also, you're building up a lot of experience in Canada now. How do you share it with other countries? Personally, I always say there is no tidal energy competition yet. We really have to prove all together on a global level that it works, and then the competition starts.
Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. Like, we were very pleased to see the recent announcements come out of the UK with the latest CFD round. So definitely agree with emerging sector. We're all working together. But in terms of the balance of investment and also exporting of expertise, I think over the years in Canada, we had, in the past, we had quite a few more Canadian technology developers. And I think where, they ran into hurdles is around getting to that, TRL commercialization, phase of things. And there were stumbling blocks in, things like getting permits for sites, getting the proper, funding and financing for projects. And so over time, what we saw is Canada was developing more of the investment climate, but as they did that, that attracted quite a bit of foreign investment, which is why you see Nova Innovation, DP Energy, and others. But we also do have tidal technologies and other technologies, Wave as well, that are Canadian founded, Canadian based, that are exporting in other areas of the world, mostly small scale. And so, that is happening. I think the other thing that, despite the fact that there's foreign companies working in Canada, a lot of them are our members, but they're also working with Canadian supply chain, mostly local suppliers. And so there's a lot of expertise being developed there, even, around things like environmental monitoring technologies and others. So I think there is a bit of a balance there in terms of both international and domestic experience.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Elisa. Very well done. And applause. The audience don't have this possibility, but thank you so much. I would like to go on to the next speaker, and that's Tim Ramsey. He's a program manager for the US Department of Energy, Water Power Technologies Office. He's taking care of the marine energy program. And in his role, he leads the program's efforts to conduct research and development to marine energy, supporting the development of new cutting-edge technologies and the establishment of a strong and competitive marine energy industry in the United States. And he is a delegate for the United States in the IEA OES Technology Collaboration Platform. Good morning, Tim. Great to see you. Some sunlight on you. So I think now all the 100 listeners are looking to you.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Thanks, Matthijs. Just confirming, can you see the slides?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great. So I will give a few of the updates, what's going on here in the US since we last met. So as a reminder, my office, the Marine Energy Program, we sit within the Department of Energy's Water Power Technologies Office. We're certainly not the only ones funding support for marine energy here in the US, but I would say we are probably the primary funders. There's other organizations like the US Navy, NOAA, BOEM, others that are supporting marine energy. But like I said, we're doing the primary funding. And our mission within the office is to support that R&D activities, commercialization activities, advancing technologies towards commercialization, as well as trying to reduce those barriers to technology deployment. So here's just a snapshot of our funding over the years. We did start in 2008. Our program was initiated in 2008. You can see our funding in that graph off to the right. We've grown steadily over the years. We had a pretty big jump from 2019 to 2020. And the current fiscal year we're in right now, 2023, we're actually funded at the highest level in the history of the program at $120 million. What's not shown on this graph is the bipartisan infrastructure law funding. Many of you have probably heard of the bill funding that was signed back at the beginning of fiscal year 2022. And that was a one-time influx of funds for clean energy, for renewable energy and energy infrastructure in particular, that came to the federal government. Our program, the Marine Energy Program, received $110.4 million of that bill funding, in addition to our annual appropriations, which we are still executing on, and I'll talk about that in a minute. On top of that, in August of 2022, the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, was signed, and what that provided was additional tax credit and tax incentives for clean energy. And I wanted to point out in particular, there was the expansion and renewal of the production tax credit, as well as the clean energy investment tax credit, of which marine energy technologies are eligible for. In addition to that, there's the hydroelectric production incentive program, which traditionally had been available for a hydropower community, but that is eligible now for marine energy, marine technology developers. And that program provides up to 1.7 cents per kilowatt hour of an incentive once projects are online and operating. Next couple slides, I just wanted to point out a few of the highlights, just some of the things happening here in the US around deployments and R&D activities. Those first two at the top, Triton Systems and Ocean Motion, those both were projects selected from our SBIR program, the Small Business Innovative Research Program. Triton actually just went in the water last month in Massachusetts. This is part of our co-development topic area within SBIR, and it's trying to prove that marine energy device could help power a data buoy. In this case, it's a point absorber type WEC. It's an oscillating water column tethered to a LiDAR buoy, demonstrating that it can help provide some of the power needs for that data buoy. Ocean Motion in the top right, deployed in California, and their technology is meant to capture very, very small waves or energy from very, very small waves. In this case, just the waves coming off the back of a boat, the wake of a boat. And in proving that, it's small energy, but it's really opening up the aperture of where you can pull energy from the ocean at that really small wave motion and what you can do with that energy. Bottom left, Waves to Water prize. That was a multi-year prize that we are working on, focusing on desalinating salt water into fresh drinking water using wave energy. Culminated last year in the final testing of the prize off of North Carolina on Jeanette's Pier. There was 4 finalists, and each of those 4 finalists did deploy in North Carolina and create fresh drinking water. And then the bottom right, Cow Wave, that was their X1 technology, their non-grid connected technology, very successful test off the coast of California at Scripps Pier. It was a 10-month deployment. They survived 2 extreme weather events. They had 99% uptime and reliability. They've since been selected to scale up to their grid connected technology, which they'll be testing at PacWave in the coming years. A few other deployments, ORPC, they've been very busy. Elisa mentioned they deployed in Canada. They also had 3 deployments in Maine in the past year. They deployed their TiGen device in Eastport, Maine, and they deployed 2 of their modular RibGen devices in Millinocket, Maine. And with those modular RibGen devices, that was really neat because they were 2 devices deployed independent of each other, operating independent of each other, and they marked the first time in our program's history that we had multiple devices at the same location operating in an array. The other 3 pictures shown here, Ocean Energy, Sea Power, and Oscilla, all of these are getting ready to test in Hawaii very, very shortly. That picture in the bottom left, that's actually a picture of them in Oregon, but Ocean Energy is in Hawaii right now. They're finishing up some generator repairs, and they'll be ready to deploy later in October, possibly early November. The other 2, Sea Power and Oscilla, they both are in Hawaii right now. They've both been in the water. They've completed their shakedown testing. They're both ready to go, ready to deploy. The Navy's Wave Energy Test Site is finishing up. Just the prep for the site should be ready later this month, early October at the latest. So very excited about getting these 3 projects in the water. We should have 2 in the water within the next month and a 3rd following right on the heels. So definitely stay tuned for additional updates coming out of Hawaii in the next couple of months. Also wanted to highlight a few recent announcements around funding opportunities and some of the work we're doing. We did recently announce selections from funding opportunity, a total of $10.3 million over 7 projects in 2 topic areas. 6 projects were focused on wave power desalination, kind of building on the information gathered and the technology developed through our Waves to Water prize. And then there was an additional project starting the feasibility assessment of an ocean current test facility. We also have a large tidal and current energy funding opportunity that's out right now. This is with bill funding, a total of $45 million over 2 topic areas. Topic area 1 is really focused on a large scale demonstration site, improving and showing a blueprint of what it takes to commercialize large-scale current energy here in the U.S. and it's meant to really develop and build that commercial site. And then topic area 2 is more focused on a community-led site and developing and demonstrating current energy technologies in a community-led site. Topic area 1 is closed. Topic area 2 will be closing here on October 19th, and we're hoping to announce selections later this calendar year or early next. We also have an ongoing prize right now, the In Deep prize. This prize is focused on distributed embedded energy, flexible materials, or distributed PTOs, and it's meant to get some new ideas into the pipeline at the very early stages, low TRLs. There's a total of $2.3 million for a prize purse. Phase 1 has closed. We anticipate opening phase 2 on October 18th. And I should point out, you don't need to have competed in phase 1 to be eligible for phase 2. We also have a notice of intent out right now for a future funding opportunity that's coming very soon, supporting our universities across the country. A total of $14.5 million is anticipated to be available to further support the research going on at our universities with respect to marine energy. And then final one to point out, just a fun one to kind of stay in touch with the program. It's the Make a Splash photo and video contest. So if you have interesting or cool videos or photos in and around the industry, you can submit those and possibly win a prize. That picture in the bottom right, that is from Verdant's deployment in 2018, and they won the prize competition that year. I know this is an international community, so I did want to touch on a few of the ways that non-US entities traditionally can work with us. Obviously, we are part of the IEA OES. We work closely with our member countries, sharing information, working on tasks together. We also have the Teamer program. In the Teamer program, what that's meant to do is provide free or economical access to test facilities and capabilities across the US. All the test facilities are in the US, but non-US organizations can apply in and get access to those facilities. We also do a lot of work in international standards. We work with the IEC. We love getting out there and meeting with our international counterparts and helping to develop those standards. We have a new program called UMERC, University Marine Energy Research Community, and that is meant to better connect research that's going on in our universities, have that knowledge transfer, have the universities know what each other are working on, work together, leverage each other's research as best as possible. And non-US institutions can join the UMER community, and I certainly encourage you to do that. We also have an annual collegiate competition, the Marine Energy Collegiate Competition. We've been running since 2019 or 2020. That's a really fun, exciting competition, and non-US universities are welcome to participate. You cannot get DOE funding like travel stipends and things like that, but you can fully participate in the Marine Energy Collegiate Competition. And then just a general statement, funding opportunities and prizes, they're all different. They all have their own rules and regulations. So if we post a funding opportunity, I definitely encourage you to look at the fine print, check what the eligibility is. But in most cases, or a lot of cases, non-US organizations can partner on an application, but again, definitely check the fine print. I mentioned there's lots of organizations that are supporting marine energy and beyond us, and even within the Department of Energy, there's a number of offices. So like ARPA-E, the Office of Clean Energy Demos, OSED, which was a brand new office stood up as part of the bill funding. There's LPO, the Loan Program Office, and GDO, the Grid Deployment Office. And all these are different offices within DOE. You can see on that bottom graph there, we're trying to really support the entire technology development. So ARPA-E is really attacking some of those low TRL technologies. They've put, I think, around $35 million into marine energy over the last couple of years. They have their Sharks program. A number of the developers we commonly work with are part of that Sharks program. Our office, WPTO, and the Marine Energy Program picks up somewhere in there. We do early stage R&D all the way to pilot demonstrations. But from there, ideally, that's where OSED would come in, and they really pick up and get over that valley of death and get projects from the pilot scale through to commercial demos, picking up those large scale, large dollar projects and really proving out the technology at large commercial scale. But it doesn't end there. LPO and GDO, they come in and they help to buy down that investment risk. LPO providing opportunities to lower the cost of capital, lower the cost of investment, lower that risk. And same with GDO, providing incentives to help just build the overall economics of a project and reduce the overall risk. So that's just a few of the activities going on here in the US. I definitely encourage you to check out our website if you want to learn more. If you want to sign up for a newsletter, scan that QR code. That's definitely the best way to make sure that you are informed anytime we put out a funding opportunity or a prize. And we also post just relevant information about the industry through our newsletter. So definitely check out our website and sign up for our newsletters. Thank you.
Hi, Tim. Thanks. I'm already very impressed about what you presented. It's a lot. I'm also impressed about how much money the DOE is investing in marine renewable energies. I love it. Let's say it like that. Still, you try to be comprehensive. There are two questions which are, yeah, you missed something. First, what about ocean currents?
Sure, there's a lot.
Specifically, the Gulf Stream of Florida. Can you say something about that? And there is also the highlight of the OTEC symposium this year in Houston. Maybe you can say something about it. And I have as well a question for you.
Sure. I'll start with the ocean current. Yeah, I'll start with the ocean current. I mentioned this very briefly, but as part of the recent funding opportunity that we announced selections on, the $10.3 million, the majority of that, 6 projects, was for wave power desalination, but there was one project on doing a feasibility study for an ocean current test facility. So specifically for ocean current, likely in the Gulf Stream. So we are looking at it. We've had some technology development in the past, developing technologies for the ocean current, but we also understand it's very expensive. And yes, we have received a lot of funding over the years. I'm very happy for the funding that we've received. But our remit covers waves, tides, ocean currents, river currents, OTEC, salinity gradients, and pressure gradients. So there's a lot that funding is meant to cover, and we can't do it all. And so we have, if you look at our funding profile over the years, yes, the majority has gone to wave, tidal, and river current, but we are still trying to support ocean current and OTEC and salinity and pressure gradients, as best we can. But yes, it isn't to the same tune as what wave and tidal has received. But we are hoping with that feasibility study on the ocean current test facility, we can better wrap our arms around what the potential is and what the just what we could do better in the future.
Okay, great. Just that because of these 2 questions, the one is on Florida, and I was thinking about in the United States, you have 50 states. Are the states as well investing in marine renewable energies? I can imagine that Florida is as well interested to do more. I see that in some countries as well, that regions are specifically interested. Is this dynamic as well there in the United States? And how do you collaborate there?
Yes, definitely. And as you can imagine, there are certain states that invest more than others. The Pacific Northwest has invested heavily over the years in marine energy. California, Oregon, state of Washington. Some of it comes as true R&D funds. Some of it comes more as tax incentives and tax breaks and part of the overall renewable energy portfolio standards that each state has. So every state we work with a little bit differently, but there's certainly been occasions where states are providing funding to the same projects that we are funding, and that can count as cost share. A lot of our federal funded projects require cost share, and you can't use federal funds to meet your cost share and federal grants, but you can use state funding. And so we've seen that with projects that we've had in Oregon as an example with Oregon State University, where they have state funding, and that helps to provide some of the cost share requirements for our federal funds.
Yeah. Tim, DOE is already supporting a long time, ocean energy technologies. Do you really see progress over the years. And I know that you have a huge experience in that. Are you happy with the progress in the sector? And especially
yes, I've definitely seen progress over the years. I will say it isn't always the progress I envisioned, and sometimes we've pivoted in different directions than I anticipated. One example is just our Powering the Blue Economy initiative. When we started back in 2008, we were really just solely focused on grid activities, and it took us about 10 years before we realized that there's a whole other suite of opportunities out there that are non-grid applications. And so we started about 2017, our Powering the Blue Economy initiative. And I really think that that's been a really good just opportunity and a jumping off point for the industry. A lot of our projects are deploying and testing for non-grid applications. And some of our technology developers, that is their end game. And some of them, that's just one suite and their overall technology pathway and portfolio to also ultimately reach the grid. And so that's provided a lot of opportunities, more opportunities to get in the water, to develop technologies, to iterate on technologies, and many times quicker, cheaper, faster. So I've seen great success there. And then on top of that, I really think with the tidal and current energy community, like I mentioned, the $45 million funding opportunity to really prove out a commercial demonstration site. I don't think we could have done that 10 years ago. I think it took it took the work that we've put in over the last 10 years to get to that point where we are confident now that we can really showcase and prove out the commercial demonstration of those technologies. So I'm really excited about what we've done, but I think the next handful of years are going to be just milestones for the industry.
One of the milestones is going into commercialization, and you hit this as well by mentioning the hydroelectric production incentive program. I don't think it is already used a lot, maybe by the ocean energy developers. But I was also wondering, is the level of support for a kilowatt hour, is that sufficient now? Do you have discussions, or is it a kind of that you say maybe we can hire up a bit in the first year, and later on when it's really starting to prove its existence, we can lower it? But I think this incentive program is very interesting, of course, but is it sufficient?
Probably not, but it was, as I mentioned, it was historically for a hydropower industry. So traditional dams and, our industry in the hydropower community. So just the fact that the marine energy community can tap into that program, I think is a win. Where it goes in the future, what the limits are. Obviously, we need to get more projects online and operating so they're even eligible for the incentive program. Yes, we certainly would love to have a higher limit, but we'll see how the program evolves over the years, especially as more marine energy companies come into it.
Okay, great. Hey, thank you so much. I'm not sure if there are other questions in the chat, but I would like to go to the next speaker. Thank you for this, and an applause as well for you.
Thank you.
Would like to go now to Katie Peterson. She's environmental scientist for the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, Wave Power Research and Development Group. She's also NREL project manager on the Multilab Primary project. I hope I pronounced it well, and is assisting in data analysis and providing an environmental science expertise in other projects at NREL. She is giving you a presentation on information systems. Happy to hear, and I would really like as well the audience to listen very carefully, because at a certain point some action of the developers are needed as well in that respect. But Katie, to you.
Thanks. So I want to preface this talk with the qualification that some of this GIS information that I will be showing today is under development, which means that your feedback is especially critical. We really want to hear how you use geospatial information systems in your work, what other applications of GIS data you could envision, and what data layers are most important to you. So quickly, I'll go over the OES data. So this is from your consortium of researchers and developers and individuals. And recently we have incorporated this data onto the Marine Energy Atlas platform, which I will describe in the next slide. But this OES data has been really instrumental in adding valuable information to the Atlas. Before, it was very concentrated on US data, and now we have heaps of international data, especially on marine energy projects at different stages, various geopolitical layers, and some environmental data. So here's a screenshot of some of the layers that we have incorporated from OES, including wave and tidal project locations, population density, and bathymetry. And all of these help give some context as to what the potential opportunities are out there and what has been done. So the Marine Energy Atlas is an online open access hub to visualize, analyze, and download data sets that are related to marine energy resources. And up until recently, it's been mostly focused on marine resource information like wave height, tidal turbulence statistics, locations of buoys that calculate or measure significant wave height. These data sets can be visualized on the online platform of the Atlas, but then queried so you can download them. And our software developers have been really working to make sure this platform is flexible and that the architecture can allow for the addition of new layers like the OES data, and then update the data as new information is added. And we're also working on in-app processing tools to leverage the existing data sets and then the OES data that's been added. So a key data set within our suite of OES GIS data are the marine projects. These layers indicate the locations of marine renewable energy projects with different information, like the project developer, the converter type, with links to the website to get even more detailed information on these projects. And there are different layers for projects that use different resources. So if you're interested in wave projects, there's a layer for that. And tidal projects, you can go to that layer and so on. And each of these layers for different resources have distinct icons to indicate what phase those projects are in. So we have concept or dormant projects that aren't quite off the ground or fully producing energy. We have in planning or under construction ones for where devices are on their way to being in the water or already in the water but not connected. And then partly operational and operational projects. So those are the ones that have been producing some energy, whether they're in a demonstration or testing phase, but they're working. And this is a great way to get sort of a lay of the land or a lay of the ocean and to understand what's going on. And this information is going to be connected with Primer. As Matthijs mentioned, Primer is the portal and repository for information on marine renewable energy, and it's the US-based web data website that just has a wealth of information and multiple knowledge hubs, and it includes our project database. So we'll be linking this to update that and keep this just as up to date as possible and include new information. And we're getting information and updated data from OES. So those continual updates will be incorporated in these data layers. We also have the ability to overlay these project layers with other layers for context. So the resource data that was already existing on the Marine Energy Atlas, and other layers like environmental or geopolitical layers. And this gives a little bit more context. So here I have the OTEC data layers for projects and our average sea surface temperature, and then bathymetry. So those familiar with OTEC know that bathymetry is an important facet in project siting. I mean, that goes for all marine renewable energy projects, but especially in OTEC and sea surface temperatures, where that gradient is really important in making that a viable project. And as I mentioned, bathymetry is really vital for all different types of projects. But the exciting thing about this layer is that in this coming financial year, our software developers are going to be working to make this queryable, so users can click on it and get sort of an idea of the estimated depth for a point, or maybe draw a polygon and then get an average depth for that area. And that's going to be super helpful. And this wouldn't have been possible without ingesting this data from OES. Also, we have the geopolitical layers, as I had previously mentioned, and this includes population density, location of populated places, so cities at different sizes, the various international exclusive economic zone boundaries. As we know, in some of these closer areas like Europe or Southeast Asia, they're not as easy to delineate without having that laid out on the map, as well as locations of ports and then national borders. This helps identify needs and opportunities for different development of projects and where it might be best to connect on land. We also have these marine protected areas, these which are the red cross-hatched shapefiles on the atlas, which represent no-go zones. So that's also important. Where you can't develop is a critical data gap sometimes. So this data lives on the Marine Energy Atlas, and our software developers are currently implementing an IFrame to let users navigate to this data without having to go through the Marine Energy Atlas on the NREL website. So this should be live soon, and users can just navigate to it through the normal OES website. But yeah, these are just a few recent updates that we've added. And if there's other information that you'd like, we'd love to hear your feedback. I know there's been a request for international wave data, significant wave height, or omnidirectional wave power. If anyone has access to that, we'd love to talk and find a way to get that on there. We're always looking to expand the data and functionality to make it useful for developers in the US and internationally. So, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. First, a question. You're asking the people to contact you when they have some information for your questions. How can they be in contact with you?
Yeah, I can put my email in the chat, or I don't know if I can chat to everyone, but I will put that in the Q&A. Maybe that's easier for everyone to see.
We're going to share anyway.
Okay.
Slides, of course.
Yeah, email's the best way to contact me.
Yeah. Jocelyn Guillot, Tiffany is saying, looks wonderful, good job. Thank you for that. Thank you, Katie, for this excellent work. I think it's important. It will help developers as well to get more knowledge on what are the commercialization possibilities, what are the issues at stake. But it's also important to get up-to-date information. I think it's also about the projects itself, if they are in the water or not, how long they are running. Don't underestimate achievements. I see sometimes that sometimes a developer or researchers are not sometimes aware of what good progress they have been booking. The fact that they have been transporting an ocean energy device over a long distance, or that they have been putting it in place in that area. And investors are asking as well, hey, is that a potential market or not, etc. So this tool can help people. I have a look in the chat. This is great to see. Are there any plans to create new data sets in the Marine Energy Atlas, updating river resource estimates, or just collate data from multiple sources? From Marie Caspar. Katie, can you
so we have the data that's on the Atlas is really a collective effort, as I mentioned, through Primer and the data that's been collected there, but also other researchers from Sandia National Lab, Pacific Northwest National Laboratories, as well as NREL. And we are planning on adding new data sets, publicly available ones, and then creating updated resource data estimates. We're hoping to get new tidal energy in this FY. So planning on getting those layers uploaded, as well as more recent wave data that's been collected and modeled, as well as new regions. And obviously we'd love to have international resource data, whether that's wave, river, tidal,
and wind.
And well, we're not doing wind. There's a separate platform for onshore and offshore wind that's underway.
Yeah.
But there has been a lot of requests for somehow making that data available for hybrid systems planning. We're just still trying to work out the nuts and bolts of that.
Now, because there's also a question on how accurate are the bathymetry data in the new GIS tool. It's also relevant for wind, of course. So there are some synergies over here there. But first of all, how accurate are the data? And yeah, the fact
so this bathymetry data, my understanding is it was pulled from NOAA's bathymetry data, originally from OES. So it should be relatively up to date, but I think there's always opportunity to add more information and newer bathymetry layers as multi-beam soundings are taken and higher resolution data is collected.
Yeah, and there is the request to project developers, if they are really measuring whatever, to share these data as well. We are working on one and the same goal to get marine renewable energies into the energy system. That's on decarbonizations. One more question for somebody? No.
Is there any interest in a layer showing existing users? I'm not sure what the question is there. Matthijs, do you know?
I don't see this question.
It's by Darren Porter. Maybe Darren, if you can elaborate in your question.
In a layer showing
fishermen.
existing.
Yes. So competing uses, not competing, but other uses within the marine environment is definitely something that we're interested in adding. We have connections with Global Fishing Watch, and they have geospatial data on a parent fishing effort, and that's industrial level fishing, because they use their satellite information. But I don't know if that data will be added to the Atlas anytime soon. There is some information that we're hoping to incorporate based on other fishing or other uses of the marine landscape, or seascape rather.
There is an interest for your contact detail. So I would like to ask Anna, can you put the email address of Katie in the Q&A? I have still one question for you, Katie. And look, the Primer project you have there as well. In Europe, we are having EMODnet. I have a feeling that there is some similarities and some cooperation maybe even possible. Are you aware of EMOTnet?
I'm not, but I would love more information.
Okay, that's to me to share it with you, but that's also an indeed a program, in fact, or a facility collecting a lot of data, especially on the European seas, and it's quite quite a lot what they are presenting there. Okay, I see already. I don't see the answer yet to the email address. Okay, it's in the answered questions, I think. Yeah, katie.peterson@nrel.gov. Hey, we are at in my time zone already at 5 o'clock. We passed the hour, and I would like to say thank you to you, Katie, as well, Peterson, for this excellent presentation. I saw that the people really applauding this, so well done, and also well continuation of the work, because it doesn't stop with today. I know it's an ongoing effort. We have to all together. I think we had 3 excellent presentations from Elisa, Tim, and Katie. A warm applause to you. Very enriching, very motivating. I'm very happy to see that in Canada, United States, there's so much effort for marine renewable energies. I don't know the next session of this webinar presenting countries. I think the next session will be maybe in 2-3 months' time, and the focus on Asia. Inviting our Asian partners to present the efforts, what they are doing, the policies, and also the project developments. Thank you for listening in today, and let's stay in contact. And yeah, have a good evening, have a good day. Thank you so much. Thank you.